This conference will now be recorded.
You come to something or a conflict zone that you would like. Or on stairs, it's lighting the treads of the stairs so that people see we need shadows to walk down. And that's more important than anything else. We did this in national parks and just lighting the surface that has to light more than anything else. There we go. Oops, oops, oops. And people go, oh, it's safe. It's safety. It's not security. To me, safety is I can see change in terrain. I can see the stairs. How do you get down something? That's where lighting the main purpose is. That someone's not going to hit me or they can see me in a crosswalk. It's safety and looking at what this is. This was actually, this picture was at the Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs. And the manager called me and said, we've got this one crosswalk where our wait staff is always almost hit when they go across. And so he said, could you come down and look at it? We can't figure out what, because the crosswalk is lit. It's fine. So I told him, I go, okay, could you wear all white clothing? So he did. He came down. And he brought his wife. And I said, have her wear all black. Do you see next to this guy? She's standing right there.
No.
And it's like, because there's nothing in the approach, so, and of course all the wait staff are wearing black and they walk into the crosswalks and then it's like, woo, where are you? So everything about lighting is definitely contrast, whether it's using shadows or whatever. And then the other thing is reassurance. I want to walk down the street and enjoy it. I'm going to feel comfortable walking down the street. I want a really enjoyable Cordova district. Not bright lights, not bright signs. What is the look that you want in Cordova? For the tours, whatever. Just to do reassurance. If they want to go outside, go to the bars at night, the restaurants, and just to do it. And it's, yeah, we've done it for different cities. This is actually Dane's lighting in Fort Collins, where they just wanted a district that nobody went to, and they redid the lighting. And just now, it's probably the most popular place to go. This is great. This is what we're saying. Thank you, Clay, for telling us to stay here. And it's really inviting. You can see the sign. You can see the entry. There's no big flashy lights coming out. This is one of your best examples of how it's inviting. You can get out there and you can light it. And so it's just like we wanted to do really good examples of where it's being done well. The color is right. It's like an incandescent feel coming in and not overly bright. Number 2, light should only be directed where it's needed. Don't spray it somewhere. And these examples are, this again is a creek that you cannot have any light go into the river. Because as we know, and if you see like the Asian fisher people that will put lights in and it attracts all the fish and everything, and it's terrible. Well, this is in a very sensitive area, and they go, no light can go because they had disruption of the fish. You know, the fish start stopping and they can't know what to do. So making sure that no light goes into the water. Y'all got that? No light goes into the water because it disrupts things. And Clay, what were you talking about? Like the little smelt, I call them smelt, hooligan, just the disruption and how they get displaced and everything. Now this is an underpass that we did. No light gets in the water. What light do you see reflected off the water?
From the building down there.
Look at that. It's that bright light shooting down, and yet the light from here is not reflected. We're using the surfaces. That's how people see the best. It's, yeah, we'll do the relighting in here too. Okay. You want to have the ceiling lit and the walls lit. And that's the best lighting that you can possibly have. But only where needed. Light truly disrupts migration. As birds migrate, and again, I heard this from one bird biologist, they usually like to have the moon on the left, the river, the mountains, whatever their pathway is on the right. And that's how they navigate. So they hit a bridge that's lit. They circle and circle and circle and circle and circle. And they get disrupted, or around a building, and they start crashing into each other. In Canada, in Montreal, they have a program that during critical bird migration, everyone turns off their building lighting. It's called FLAP. And they have avoided thousands of disruptions and crashes through it. So it's like, make sure that your lighting's not going to hurt the birds, the salmon, the fish, whatever is important to Cordova for your industry. This is kind of the disruption of what could happen. This is not Cordova, believe me, but it's an example of what light, we call it light pollution, but it is stranded light, it's stray light that just is going up everywhere, and it's affecting the works. This one, if you got a path, we know with LEDs, we can get distribution that's long and narrow, only lights a path and not off at all. This light right here is lighting this entire path. It's 50 watts. And look how far it can light. And because it's a low wattage, it's very low glare. This again is along a bike path for the creek. And we just want to make sure we're lighting exactly what we need, nowhere else. Light trespass, light shining in my window is probably the #1 complaint from people. Do any of you guys have lights that are coming in your window you don't like?
Our street lights.
Our street lights, okay, come in the window. Were you talking?
Haven't shot it out yet.
No, but the distribution, you can do it low glare. You can light exactly what you want without the glare coming back. But you just pop up a light and go, the old legacy light sources, take 3, type 4, let's just plunk them in and blah. No, you can now get distributions. Or what we do is that in the housing, you can put the LED lights in the housing and it reflects through a lens. So it's soft and beautiful and not little points of light. Points of light in a street light are so yesterday that you don't have to do it. But there is some issues, and again, these type of lights and what happens, it's going somewhere where it's not needed. Like wasted energy, right?
Yeah.
If you gotta produce diesel, how many gallons of diesel to light that you're not supposed to light? So we're gonna get into where that is. There are great ratings. We can look at light fixtures and go, oh, backlight, going into the window, useful light, light trespass, glare into someone else's. Very easy to look at different light fixtures and you get that rating. I would recommend for Cordova, we're going to get into there, Dane will, but again, I can't repeat it enough. No uplight, 0 uplight. Glare, I would not go over a G1, maybe G0. It goes up to 5. And backlight, depending on where you are, just get a good distribution. light exactly what you want. But you can get, again, city planning or whatever, these type of lights you have to prove in your light fixtures, in your schedules, that you're not over these bug ratings. Backlight, uplight, glare. Third, light should be no brighter than necessary. There is the river right here. And it's really dim. We have lit national parks in 2 moonlights and done surveys with people, people visiting the park. What do you think? Oh, it's fine. Because they're adapted to that lower lighting level. And you're lighting just what you need without the glare. So that is what is, you can do it. And just have exactly the right amount of light. Because if you go from one bright spot to a dim spot, especially people with older vision like me, it takes us a while. Think of walking into a movie theater, how you go, oh, I can't see anything. And you walk out and you're adapted right away. So our adaptation to darkness takes a long time. So you think you're overlighting something or it's bright, but think of leaving it and how you lose your vision and to get around. Yes, we need periods of darkness. Everyone does. Nature does. Plants do. We need it. I mean, all these people have their blinds closed because of the street light, right? Okay, we'll take care of that street light. And yes, as a lighting engineer, I can dictate and calculate exactly. These are metrics that we use: nuisance glare, disability glare. You actually can't see anything because the glare is so bad, I can't see behind it. Like if you're pulling up a ship or something and it's like, oh, this floodlight, where is it? I gotta see beyond it, or someone's headlights coming towards you. And then discomfort glare. I just don't like the light. So there are different types of glare metrics that we have. And again, I already showed you that we see by contrast. That's how we see. We don't see about the amount of light. In fact, it was actually our research in Anchorage that was the first in the country that showed us that we lowered lighting levels from 100%, 50% to 25% and took out surveys and saw objects and everything. 0 difference in visibility. Because as we're adapted, the contrast stays the same, we can see it. So more light, no, it's not better sight. It has the potential of more glare. We see by contrast. This is at Anschutz Medical Center. We actually looked at students where the lights are located. By the way, always have the light 8 to 10 feet before the crosswalk. If it's at the crosswalk, it hits the top of my head, I want it to come and face me and get the light on the person or the child or the bicycle, whatever is going. And it's very easy to do. If you don't need the lights on, turn them on. We took this photo last night. Where were we?
Cordova. That's the ferry gym.
All that light is costing diesel. All that light is disrupting the fish. We don't need that light. If you could redirect it, have it the right color, whatever that you need. And yes, LED lights normally we can dim down to 10% easily. It's normal. Every single light should have a dimmable driver. They're almost normal now with them. And then turn off non-essential lighting. If no one's in the area. We were out at 1 in the morning, right? How many people do we see and all the lights were on?
Real people, lots of lights.
Lots of lights. No one's there. Why? And that's a question I want to ask you all. It's like, why are the lights on when no one's here? And it's costing you so much money to run this. Yes, dimming, depending on the activity. This is normal. This is done, Dane's project in Salt Lake City. They are dimming and putting lights under control. We can do seasonal control too, like fishing season or whatever. Northern Lights season. Hey, the Northern Lights are coming. Let's dim the lights so everyone can see the Northern Lights from Cordova instead of having to go out for a weekend. Very, very easy to do. Okay? We dim the lights, we turn them off, what that's going to do to the energy. Save how much money? That would be the ultimate goal in operations too. And this is the other thing, people don't realize that we need to use warmer lighting because that's what we are affected by. And here is something that every species on this earth has a different sensitivity to color of light, every single one. I love this one with elk, moose, deer. They can't see into the red. So if you're hunters or whatever, what color clothing do you wear? Orange, red, you look black to them. They cannot see you. You wear blue jeans, but they go into the ultraviolet. I don't have fish here, but I can get fish and what salmon is. We can adjust the color of the light. The lights are so sophisticated now, you can change the color depending on the season, what you want to disrupt or not disrupt. And you work with what the sensitivity is of different species. Extremely easy to do. This is work that Virginia Tech did on soybean production. And all the soybeans underneath the street light, they could not harvest because they were only at 30% production. And it was just a waste. And Iowa Department of Transportation said, this is killing the farmers to have all of this. So plants, and I love this one. This tree is underneath a street light. And if there's light there, the leaves don't fall off for 2 weeks. It's called a photoperiod. And it's like, oh, it's still growing or whatever. And yet this portion, whoops, go back again, you taught me this? And yet this portion is where it's not under the light. So it does affect the plants. And moths, we're down to 5% of the moths, what we had in the 1950s. They get caught. They're not out producing, they're not out pollinating, they're nothing. So yes, light affects nature, huge. But it's very simple to put it into the algorithm, figure out what spectrum, what controls, maybe it's seasonal, snow on the ground, whatever, you can do it. So these are just my quick suggestions for Cordova. Just minimize blue light, no uplight, control the light, see the glare ratings, controls. Do not light the water. If you can see the light, it's wasting energy. It's doing all the bad stuff. This beautiful photo is compliments of Lila. It's just beautiful. She took that 2 nights ago, 2 nights ago. That's your celebration to me of what I see. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to Dane, who's going to go through some of our surveys that we did with Justin and Clay. They were the hard workers, so there we go.
Well, now that Nancy taught you all the principles about lighting, we're going to ask you to find out, to tell us about these photos. What do you see in here that you just learned about, good, bad? What do you see? This is the crosswalk by the school and right by Clay's
That's a
office.
light trespass on the blue house.
Oh, wow.
Bruce's house is being
That's being blasted with light. But they weren't home at the time. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Well, why is the lights here? We got 2 lights over here. We got 2 lights over here. What was the purpose, the original intent of that?
Lighting probably for the students.
Students for safety.
Right, and if you go down the street to the right, I actually think that's 3rd Street. There's a light that's right in front of a house at 206 Lake Avenue, belongs to the village. There's a light right in front of it, and some of that light would come in the window that faces the street. It's not a real obnoxious problem, but the crosswalk is another, 60 feet or so that way to the east, and that really should be lit up.
So there may be other crosswalks that aren't lit to a safe amount or something like that. So, I mean, absolutely, one of the first things we look at when we go look at a campus or a city is like, where are the primary conflicts? Where are the issues that are happening? Crosswalks, that's the most dangerous, right? Where somebody, getting hit by a car could get killed, right? That's, now, when are the students crossing?
8:30 in the morning,
8:30 in the morning,
8:30 to 8:45.
4 o'clock in the afternoon,
Okay.
Yeah.
10 o'clock at night. There's the light, so light when you need it, light where you need it. So focus on the areas that you need, and then appropriate light level too, because what happens there? Can you
Your eyes have to adjust.
Can you see past it?
Eyes have-
Right.
yes.
So and for those of us who are experiencing some aging eyes, it takes longer for that adjustment to happen. And literally, I've gone through intersections that are isolated, intersections just rural around it, intersection lit, where I drive through and I can almost count seconds where I'm like, I don't know what I'm seeing. My headlight's wrong, but I can't see anything. And it's like, if something is beyond that, how do you see? Anything else about the color?
Awfully bright.
The bright, bluish. So that bluish is affecting human health and species. So that blue light going into your bedroom window, one of the worst things, because that suppresses our melatonin. It changes our sleep patterns. But it also is more attractive to the bugs and then the birds. And then, so it's a compounding effect.
Right.
Maybe
Pointing towards.
Okay, there we go. So this was, in our measurements, was 2.5 times the criteria. So that's, again, energy that could be reduced and probably increased visibility with less light because of the darkness around it. 10 times the light trespass criteria. Put the light where you need it. A lot of that's with the actual light distribution. And if that still doesn't control it, then shielding around the light that helps keep that private property shadow. And it was cool white. 4100 Kelvin is the metric. We didn't go into the teaching about that, but there's more to, we want to, basically the International Dark Sky Association has said previously 3000 Kelvin is the maximum. Actually, as the temperature gets lower, the color gets warmer. As the temperature goes higher, it looks bluer, like a flame. The blue flame is hotter. The warm orange flame is lower temperature. So actually, we're going toward more like 2700 Kelvin, which is more like the incandescent lighting you have in your house. Used to have in your house. Probably similar story here. This is down at the high school, Copper River and Second Avenue. So very similar story going on here. 2.7 times over criteria. We didn't measure the light trespass. There weren't any residences right around there, so we didn't measure that. But yeah, funny, these were all ordered. All these lights were ordered together. They should all be the same color temperature. This one is 5500 Kelvin. Over time, some of them may have stayed the original color temperature and others shifted, or they could shift one way or another over time. Okay, what do you see in this one here? Birch and lake.
Quite a bit of trespass, but it's warmer light.
Trespass, warmer light. This is the high pressure sodium. So this is DOT owned. So the utility can't really actually change this light out, but is there anything that you could coordinate with the DOT to influence that? What else do you see? Does it feel, how's it feel? Like just looking down the road, visibility, good, bad, adequate? So here's 3.5 times over criteria, 20 times over light trespass criteria. There is, our night vision might be more sensitive, is more sensitive to that white light than this kind of orange warm light. So it can, while our metrics are all about daytime vision, every metric we have is daytime vision. At night, we could become more sensitive to the blue spectrum, but our metrics don't change. But you might say, this doesn't look as bright as the other one, but it's even higher over the criteria. So this is at 2000 Kelvin.
That light in the background almost looks brighter than the street.
Wow. Yeah, that's a wall pack on the residence itself, right? That is owned by, what was that area?
This is the last one.
It's the last one.
I think
Yeah,
that's
that's-
Right, right.
But the
Another-
sign of the little chapel.
Another piece where whatever, the utility can't go out and change a light on a private building, but if you set the strategies and you set a momentum of doing the right thing with lighting, what would help affect this as an ordinance that would affect private lighting? And hopefully, be able to, if it's public housing, then maybe there is a public way of negotiation of dealing with those things. Okay. Downtown, first from Adams to Browning. What do you see in this one?
As someone who drives that in the dark all the time, I like that lighting.
Okay, that's great to hear. What's interesting is it's pedestrian lighting. It's low level, it's shorter. It doesn't have to be 30 feet tall to even light one of the lightest streets in the town.
Does it have some of the warmer color to it as well?
This one's interesting.
It's a mix.
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened. There may be some shift over time, because actually, if you look at the computers, well, it's not on the computer screen, but in our photos, these almost look green, and when you're out there, they look a little green. So there's something happening with the LEDs. They're getting close to end of life, and it's color shifting. Now, I'm wondering if this one failed and was replaced.
We replaced a few of them. So we can see.
Right, so I can see you place that one, and so there's like 3 of them that aren't green. At the moment. But you look at, right here, there's this shadow line, and very little light up above that, which is probably where, if there are residences that are probably on the second floor in this case. So this one, almost right on, spot on criteria, 1.2 criteria. We try to be within plus or minus 10% of criteria, but that's actually really good. And this actually measured, I think we probably measured this one here at 5,700 Kelvin. But this is really a great example of the right criteria, a good scale for the lighting, and not overly lit. All right, this is now further north on First, at Adams to Browning. There are residences on this side, I guess, the steep grade on this side, or is there residents on that side
There's
too?
residents on both sides.
Residents on both sides. Well, that's great. I couldn't even tell. Couldn't see them. But what do you feel here on the street? Good, bad, well lit? Maybe think of your own experience too.
5%.
Yeah, well, no, it's, I'm trying to remember where I drop out of the lights when I'm coming here in the morning. You know, and it's a little bit beyond where you are, so as you go down the hill, you lose the street lights.
Oh, I can say that when I was there, when we were there, it felt quite good. You could see everything you needed to see. And there was really very little spill into any of the residences. I think it's one of the best examples of street lighting of this type in a residential area. 50% below criteria. In fact, if I was taking the criteria literally, I changed this to collector criteria, even though it might be an arterial, officially the only arterial in this area, but that was like 30 or 60%. What was it? 70%, it was 0.3. 70% below criteria feels good. It feels right. And especially with the LED and having that little bit of blue in that spectrum, we want to minimize blue, but a little bit helps you see and be able to dim that light far below criteria. You can still see just fine. In fact, when we've done these studies, one of the biggest studies we did was in Seattle. And where, and Nancy was talking about, we've tested in a few places, going from 100% light level down to 50, nobody even noticed. I was standing there with we had a wireless control system, utility was all hooked up and said, okay, he's got the iPad. Okay, I measured it, I got the light level, go down to 50%. Okay, we're waiting, does it go to 50%? And he's like, I am. I look at the meter and it's measuring 50%. None of us could, if it dims slowly, you can't even perceive it. It's a really weird experience. And then you dim down to 25%, you're starting to actually feel, oh, I can tell that's dimmed. But then the metrics, actually measuring sight distance, while people were driving, and this was done with Virginia Tech, they had this whole thing, GPS set up and little buttons where people push a button when they see an object and they can measure the distance while they're driving, how far away were they when they saw it. Across the board, between all of that light level, there was almost no significant difference in detection, visual detection distance. So what are we doing? We're wasting energy, even lighting to criteria. And we are on the IES boards, the IES committees for the roadway lighting committee. And a whole bunch of people don't want to make a change. We're pushing really hard to say, we're just wasting energy and light. So this is why we want to, I tell you, one of the things about being here in Cordova, we've realized the innovation that's happening here is so impressive. On the energy and the utility side, with the fishing, with all the industry here that's happened, how people had to redefine this whole town when things change. But this town knows how to do it. And we want to, with some support from University of Alaska Fairbanks and other areas, help create a living laboratory that we can come and get some funding to do some more testing, bring out like examples of lighting and dimming and color temperature and all the things we've been talking about, and not just say, we know what the right thing is for you. We want you to see what's right for you. So we can set up the demonstration and look at all this stuff, take surveys, and figure out what the right thing is, because there's new technology out there that we don't have data points on. And Cordova could be a leader in making the next step in what is appropriate lighting for a town like this.
Dane, I have a quick question. So
Yeah.
you're saying like the criteria is overlit based on the studies that you've done. So what's the level that you, like what percent of criteria would you recommend?
We have, and like even large cities, Salt Lake City we've worked with, and San Diego, San Jose, other places where We've been conservatively saying, we think 50% is totally fine. But we've convinced the cities and their attorneys to bring that criteria down to 75% of the criteria. And then apply dimming strategies where you can dim that further when there's fewer people out on the streets.
So that would be 0.25, not 0.75.
Yeah.
The 0.75 of the criteria. So we're reducing by 25%, which we know is barely even noticeable. But that is saving energy.
It's like, for instance, San Jose, what they do, they have what they call curfew. When they go to curfew from like 10 o'clock at night till 1 in the morning, the lights dim. When the bars get out, they increase the lighting level for about a half hour. So everyone can leave the bars and the police can see who's drunk and all that. And then they decrease it. But they're on incredible, and they can use their iPad. Okay, we can get it adjusted for the season, for the day, for the astronomical time clock, and adjust it. And it's constantly, you can work with it and adjust things in real time.
Yeah, where does, I mean, speaking of that, obviously ground cover is huge.
Huge.
When the snow flies.
Yeah.
Things look different.
It does.
When it doesn't fly, I mean, that's just an observation. I'm not a light scientist, but I'm assuming there's something in that.
And did you have to get that done in Anchorage?
In Anchorage, we did. We were able to say Anchorage's lighting was at least 3 to 4 times brighter in the winter time than need to be because of the reflectance.
Right, okay.
So we have put into the control system a seasonal adjustment, and they're fine. And we did, our research up there showed with all the snow. What it is.
And I think being able to put the sensors in the light that say what is
Yeah.
the reflectance backup, that could say is there snow or not by the sensor, and be able to dim that down automatically. There are some, we've been working with the motion sensors to say, well, we can do just-in-time lighting, and if the sensor sees you, and it knows you, if the next sensor sees you, it knows which way you're traveling, it'll light up the path. When it's, then you can dim and only provide lighting when it's needed, but some of those motion sensors are very challenging.
And you dim it slowly, and that's what we're looking at Living Lab with different types of motion sensors. PIR, because passive infrared really do not work. We don't have the gauge anything, but that's a whole other discussion we can get into. The different types of sensors and what they're looking at.
We've also done work with sensing for wildlife, with like traditional areas where elk just cross. There's areas that in Colorado that are pretty predictable about where those migration paths are, and there's a lot more elk getting hit in these certain areas. Well, what can we do with sensors? And they found some sensors that are more on the EMF scale, so they're sensing the size of the animal that's coming, and that has been successful. And they actually used it was a prison detection system for escaping prisoners.
It's amazing. There's very little heat coming out of an elk or a deer head. It's all of their legs. So in the wintertime, you've got that differential. People, it's our heads. So we have to completely reverse the sensors for animals.
And just some other examples of what we saw around here. We were looking to the north and seeing the auroras, and looking to the south and seeing all these lights. Nobody's over here by the ferry. All the lights are on, and how much light is coming into the water.
Well, part of that is for the ferry and the other part is for the Coast Guard cutter. They probably want a fair amount of light there just for security.
Now, having light having light on the area, but why should we see it from here?
Most of that is.
Anything we can see from here
Is wasted.
is wasted.
Yeah.
Wasted energy.
And most of that light is for the shipyard.
Right.
Right, and we're going,
And they're like floodlights aimed up like this, so they're just putting as much light up into the sky, maybe even more than they are putting on the ground.
and it's hard to see beyond that, like what's going on in the shipyard. You know, the glare from it, everything. You could light that shipyard beautifully with great vision to see what's going on.
And you wouldn't see it at all from anywhere outside of.
It's actually an navigational hazard for a mariner to have that back. I mean, we're a small enough port and probably don't have real mariners that don't know it, but it's a huge issue, backlighting.
You know,
It blinds our navigation lights.
one of my first, my first job out of college, I went to Sydney, Australia, and worked there for a couple of years. The first project I worked on was floodlighting for the Sydney Opera House. And the entire reason for relighting it was because of glare from the ferry drivers coming around into Circular Quay, and they are blinded by these floodlights when they come around. And so we were looking at a projecting, like a theatrical projection kind of technology where you cut out a little projector image of the opera house. So you project the shape of the opera house onto the opera house. No still light. And that is now becoming standard for all of Europe. Any facade lighting in Europe now has to be done with gobo projection, so there's no still light, no uplight.
So that first bright is the fuel dock, isn't it? Second, at first, yeah, from the left, that would be the fuel dock. Then the bluish,
I think the third one's the fuel though. I think the first two are the shipyard.
Doing an inventory, they're doing an inventory to see what we need to go change, right?
well, no, it's just trying to figure
Just trying
out
to
what's
understand.
what there.
Yeah, the amber one's the ghost.
I think this is the ferry itself.
No, that's the cutter, or the buoy tender.
Okay, you got this morning at 4.
When did you
could've
take
been at the
this?
dock.
2 days ago.
And the Coast Guard boat's not here right now,
Okay,
so that's not the
They're out of
boat.
town.
I thought I saw him pull in the other day, but. you would
For
be
like an
better than
hour.
me.
They were
Yeah.
picking up some
But
people.
we know that the ferry was there and all the lights were on there.
Okay.
So the harbor docks, we see the warmth of the light. This is all the high pressure sodium lighting. There's 2 different levels of light. There's these little bollards that also provide power and service for the boats. And then there's some light poles right here that are also lighting up some of the areas.
I was gonna say, you got lucky, most of them. I only see one that's out.
Oh, no, they did not take the area.
If you look that way a little further.
There's several of them that are normally out along there that
Yeah,
make it
yeah.
hard to
You
navigate.
can see a lot of the bollards are out here. The light's coming from the light pole right there.
Yeah.
And other areas, some of the light poles were out. But, making sure that, you're lighting the surfaces, lighting for where people can see for safety while avoiding light into the water is, well, certainly using the bollard lights, keep it pretty contained, low wattage, low light output, but give you enough of that wayfinding and vision on there.
Leave that on one more second. I have one comment, over in the newer part of the harbor. I was down there, I don't know, around October, I want to say around 13th of October. This was 20-some years ago.
Uh-huh.
And there were these little jellies, not jellyfish, but they were comb jellies.
Uh-huh.
So they're only about half an inch in diameter. They're very tiny. And when we have some storm winds from the southeast that blow in fork-tailed storm petrels, which are about, the body size is about a little bit bigger than a robin, but the wingspan is about like this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these birds were attracted to the light that was bringing these comb jellies up near the surface. And they would spiral down to the water and then start flying underwater and pick off these comb jellies. I don't know if anybody had ever observed that, but it was just the neatest thing. And this was an advantage for them just for probably a few days of the year in October. But it was one example of how light can attract some marine life that benefits bird life.
Well, but in that case, it's an advantage, well, it's an unnatural.
It's an unnatural event, unless they had strong moonlight that
Right,
would do
and
the same thing.
as I've learned a little bit, is there's some of the juvenile salmon breeding around the docks or they're growing.
There's a lot more juvenile herring around those docks, and they feed under those lights at night. And so I use them a lot to attract fish.
Yeah, we know, I mean, I don't know what the rules are about spotlighting around here, but I don't think they're legal in Colorado. So, you know, the spectrum and keeping lighting just where you need it is where the adoption, yeah.
So then you're saying, so like that taller light, the high pressure sodium right before now, you can see it has almost a circular pattern on the water. And some of those LEDs now, I mean, you can literally make them the width of that walkway and then you can extend for.
Yeah, then that's what Nancy was showing with the pathway lighting. It's just specifically designed to light that. And the ballers themselves, like just keeping, the lower you can get to the surface you're lighting, you know, the less spill you get beyond. And it provides that wayfinding, it's low glare. You know, in a lot of ways, this isn't a horrible example. I mean, there's a lot of good things happening.
Brightest lights actually.
Right. Just, you know, again, if you can see the light source, that's wasted light. You should be able to see the ground, the surface, but not the light source. Until you're standing in that area. Closer up view.
There's some lights that are up.
Yeah, some bollards were out, and some of the overhead lights were out, for sure. And then Nancy showed this one earlier, just a fantastic job of just lighting some surfaces, lighting what's the sign that you need to see, but you can barely see the light source itself. And this is enough to see in the parking lot. Right? I mean, it looks really dark here. It's not quite that dark in real life. Quite comfortable. And then you walk up and this like little security light, you know, motion sensor comes on and blinds you. To something that's probably a little overlit. In fact, this light level here is, again, 10 times the light level out there, making that not look quite as bright. But this, as people said, this is comfortable. There's no need for this. It actually doesn't help security.
Well, it is a bank after all.
It is a bank. It is a bank. But in fact, the glare, one of the things we were in Salt Lake City, we always love bringing the police and the fire department into these kind of conversations. We learn a lot because they're out in the city all the time, all night long. And it said one of the biggest problems we have right now is glare from the streetlights destroying the view of the Ring doorbell cameras. And somebody comes in, they're completely silhouette. It's blinded by the light and it can't see the person. So glare control became a security issue and a camera functionality issue. Some really good example and some maybe excessive light at the time, but you know, these sconces, oops, let's see. Sconces here, while they're not, you know, full cut off, they are putting light up into the sky a bit. you can look straight at them and they're comfortable. It's not glare. So that's a reasonable example of that. And then there's downlights on the back of these that light some of the stone and around here. But we measured about 10-foot candles. We probably only need about 1 foot. So I think there's some capacity to, again, save energy, dim down, and maintain brightness, safety, and everything. So kind of what's some of the next step? What we're hoping to do, and we're trying to generate the funding to do so, is to create what is the street lighting, what is the kind of master plan? Where do you want to go with the changing out the streetlights, finding places that those pedestrian crossings that might need a bit more light, where can we provide safety and also provide a control system that could put the light on when it's needed, dim the light when no one's out on the street. Maybe there's some places you actually want to turn the lights off. Some cities don't want to do that. Some absolutely want to do it. And actually, it's been community engagement where people want to turn lights off, or it's turning certain things off during the bird migration. But how, and understanding how does this all affect the fishing industry? What needs to be done to maintain the industry here, and safety, and people being able to sleep. And really, we want to all of these things. We need to know what your goals are.
Yeah, and this is just kind of where we came up, Justin and Dane and I. So you could add, what is it? What are your community goals here? We'd like some conversation. Don't know about them. What do you want?
I'd like to see the top one as high priority, and the bottom one is the next highest priority.
Okay, so, well, that's good.
Right.
We can redo it. So you're picking up things.
All right, well, that would be a great thing. How do you prioritize these or add any more?
That'd be awesome.
It's not a whiteboard, so don't draw on the screen.
So which were those be?
Well, lighting for safety, obviously, I think would be the most important, and then reducing energy. Second.
All right, we're taking a survey.
I'm a bird biologist, and I should admit that I'm off grid. So, but I'm in town part of the year, so I take advantage of the lighting.
So if you were taking a survey, okay. What about the others? How would you rate them? And then we'll ask others.
I don't think creating a welcoming environment is super important because most of the time tourists are here is the summer when it's bright.
Okay, so this could be the lower.
I would disagree. I
Okay.
think welcoming environment is, that's not exclusively for tourism, that is for residents as well. We want to be a community that people enjoy living in.
This is great. I mean, it's good to disagree.
It all kind of depends on the sections of welcoming lighting, maybe in downtown or harbor area, not so much in some of the others. I like having a street light actually at my road because it's one of the few roads that has a street light, so I can help people navigate by that light. Because so many of the roads coming down into the highway don't have lights at the base of them.
Wayfinding.
Yeah, so for me, it's important. I live a mile and a half the other side, and I drive to here, and I'm normally come in the dark. Even now, I'm still coming in the dark. And so, it is really important not to have bright spots because of the having to adjust my eyes as I'm driving. And that's why I do really like, downtown I'm driving slow. so I can adjust better than when I'm on the highway. You know, and so for me, there's a driving safety, but I still need that wayfinding, you know, so I need to have some lights so I can know where to
So
turn.
I'm hearing appropriate light, not too
Appropriate.
bright, not too dim.
Yeah.
Goldilocks light.
That's what we all want. That's what we want.
What I'm thinking about here is that we might go through, like, think about what your top three are, or maybe even rank them, and when we go next to it, you put up your rank, number 1, 2.
I don't see why you have to rank any of these. It seems that you could achieve all of these at the same time.
Love you the way you
Yeah, I
think.
like that.
Love the way you think.
They're all-
I think that, I agree. I don't think we can, I think we can meet all of them. None of these things are actually completely opposing.
So at the old science center, when they took the street light out from right where the building is, which is out on the dock, we ended up replacing it with strings of Christmas lights down the rails because we couldn't, you know, it was dark and you were on a dock headed down to get to the building. And so it was at times scary to get out there because you couldn't see. But, you know, just having a raft of Christmas lights on the rails made everyone comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Cordova, I mean, in my opinion, needs more streetlights. And I'm all about doing the responsible lighting, but I actually feel like streetlights.
Where,
I mean, around town, I'm thinking like Bloodshed Road. It's kind of dark. And just other areas and kind of going from dark to night. I have to think about.
yeah, so we went down Whiteshed Road this way, and I think we experienced, there were some lights out there. But it was really bright and going in and out, dark to bright. And then the location of it was this, just, you still couldn't see the street sign. It seems, I mean, just as a thought, like, if wayfinding is the thing, what if the street sign becomes a little light bulb that lights the street sign? Doesn't have to use a lot of energy. It still needs power. So getting power there costs money. In some places we could use solar, but that's not so much a good thing here. Not a lot of solar in the winter to charge those up.
2 months.
Well, you don't need light when you don't need it because it's so bright.
Oh, no, 2 months of the year, it's too dark to solar power.
Right. In some places, we are finding solar lighting is so much more cost effective than even power, even if there's power in the area, that the cost of conduit and wiring has gone up so much, labor costs, that the cost effectiveness was flipped on its head. It used to say you had to be like a quarter mile away from power for solar to make sense.
Not anymore.
That's not good.
We might in whole communities in Colorado, 100% solar, in the mountains.
Like,
Year round.
Woodshed, W-H-I-Q. I think it's not very.
I agree, all these are important, but if I was going to continue to rank, I would rank the neighbor-friendly lighting as third, and I need to leave, so I'll get to you.
So anything else?
I'm a bird person, but I don't see why fishing bird habitat would be fourth or fifth.
So we could do lighting, do all this stuff, but also have a fish and habitat friendly.
Right.
In other words, the type of light.
I'm a bird person, and the birds migrate pretty high over Cordova, along the edge of the mountains, not over town so much. In the fall, where they might go to the skill in the fall, and then more of them migrate out where I am, because I'm beyond Orchard Road. And it's probably 100 times, 1,000 times more food.
The type of light that doesn't affect the birds.
Right.
We see students up.
And I don't have any night light
Ultimate dark skies. All right. Thank you for your input.
Yeah.
Anything else we have that hasn't been brought up? Anybody's?
One more point. There's a lot of wasted light out here and space.
Yes, we noticed that last night. We were fast. Got 2 minutes.
Some of us have commented on
Yeah. That's interior, that's at a month from now. No. What about everyone else?
I think there's a lot of like public education that would have to happen. I would bet if you polled town, maybe even the majority of people would love the way that the school crosswalks are really illuminated. Where I've heard a lot of people commenting about like it,
Okay.
which, you know, again, I think it's maybe, you know, maybe to show them how, you know, actually it's a perception that versus reality.
And that's when we have done some of these demonstrations with the police department, with citizens, with the city staff and things like that. We started off with the city police building, and they had wired up a dimmer so there's parking lot lights. The city did, not telling the police. And we started off in that parking lot, 100% light level. We took our surveys. We went around the city, we took a bunch of surveys. We come back to the parking lot, we're like, well, we know you took the survey here once, but we'd like you to take it again. They're like, why? It's the same. It's the same. And we're like, oh, whatever, okay. Fill it out, and we hadn't told them that we'd been down to 50%.
25%.
It was at 25%. And they filled the same thing out, and they said, we did that down, and we ramped it back up, and they're like, oh.
It seemed like no idea. You know, that's not the difference.
It looks,
From then on, they were convinced it's not more light, it's what you're after too. And they went, wow.
and that's where having a living laboratory here, it doesn't have to be, we're not talking about the entire city, but find a couple places where you can do some demonstrations to engage, and that education, when you can see it, because we could talk all day long about lighting numbers. Nobody knows what it means until they go out and see it and experience it, and then they know.
And also to do the lighting for the school crosswalks. How about elementary, do it for not so tall pedestrians? And again, if everything is uniform, sometimes it's hard to see them. We need contrast, that's why you put it in front of, okay, now let's do that. Okay. You're there, okay, I'm the light. It's the photographer. Car's coming this way, can't see it. If I go here, all of a sudden the light now hits her. So it's where they're located, it doesn't have to be bright, the car now can see it. So that's where it is, it's location. Thanks for being there. Yeah.
I apologize. There's a comment in the chat that I didn't see till just now. From a city parks and recreation point of view, being welcoming is really important. We want to develop our parks and open space to be used outside of daylight hours.
Absolutely. And that's very, very easy to do, being welcoming. So it's that reassurance, I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna do everything. Perfect.
You know, you remember the lighting in the gazebo down in the hospital, the Odiak one? It doesn't seem like that's been on the last couple of years. So they have a big boardwalk that goes out to the gazebo and it continues on out. And they just have lighting right out like the wheels and stuff. And it looked like that was the only thing that was lit. Those were super low levels of light. You could just see that whole pathway as you walk up there.
Yeah.
I guess a couple of thoughts, and some of this is from customers and whatnot. The neighbor-friendly lighting was that's the biggest thing that I see out there. Even more so than doing lights for very often. I'll see 20 lights for that.
I mean, we're shot out instead of burning.
Yeah, It also seems like there really hasn't been a lighting design. We have poles, power poles everywhere at one point, where they just wrecked out. Wherever there was a fixture, or one pole left back there and took all over the town. So there's no rhyme or reason. The other one of the crosswalks is like people say on their day, we have a light right in the middle of someone's house where there's really very little room for on the road, and every 60 feet it is a crosswalk where it's right in between the two fixtures. In general, I love the green strip, especially in converting to LEDs and seeing before and after, how much better the light quality was at such lower levels than not having to scatter. You can actually stand up down by the sun and see every single car, every single person further in the street. It used to be glare out, you could only see about a third of the street. So but those are smaller fixtures, more evenly distributed into Dave's point, in spots when you're driving along, you get a really bright light in your face, and then it's another quarter of a mile before you see the next one. It seems like a few more fixtures with a lot less LEDs would have more evenly distributed.
Yeah, and I mean, that Woodshed Road, we were the only ones out there at that time. It was late.
It was like,
It was after 6 PM.
After 6 p.m.
after 11 p.m. right?
After 6, there's no one out there.
But I really like the idea of just the wayfinding piece. Like, it could actually just be the sign itself that's illuminated, have a little light above 2 watts.
You can have reflective strips, actually.
Reflector strips.
Yeah.
There's so many wonderful solutions, except what do you want?
What's the cost differential for shaped lighting versus unshaped?
What do you mean by shift?
You were talking about illuminating a narrow row, which is to me a very shaped light versus something that's around illumination.
The cost of the lens is the cost of the lens.
It's the cost of the lens.
Now, not every single manufacturer is that precise.
Yeah.
So there may be a cost for those manufacturers to really pay attention to something like that, but ultimately, it really shouldn't be.
It's insignificant. And basically, when you specify light,
Mhm.
you basically what type do you want? Type 4, which is a blob, or type 5, it's everywhere, or type 1, long and narrow, it's just a type of, it's a specification. That's it. Yes.
We've got another comment in the chat. As a snowplow operator on the streets, there is a big difference in the street lights from no snow to snow coverage, something to take into consideration. Maybe the lighting for no snow conditions might be too much for snowy conditions.
Yes.
Got it.
Probably back to appropriate inadequate light level.
Yeah. Seasonal stuff. Snow.
Great.
No, that's a really, really good comment. And again, that's what we thought of.
I kind of wonder, those crosswalks, a lot of the complaints and requests for having those so bright was when you get into winter and it's really dark, and we have a lot of rain and it's no snow on the ground. But it seems like there's no light. Again, it's because it's not reflecting off the road. It doesn't mean there isn't a tremendous amount of light there.
If somebody walks into that area, you will see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you get, well, like the person,
And so is everything.
it's not the road, it's the person that you're trying to light in also, is something else.
I'm wondering if we also, if there is anyone else online we haven't heard from that would like to speak, can they actually speak through the owl?
Yeah, everyone online has permission to speak up.
Okay. Is there anybody online that wants to add anything to the conversation?
Yeah. I mean, thoughts? No, I think.
What's said, are too bright, or there's not enough. Neighbor-friendly lighting, that's a private thing. Too bright lights.
The streetlights need to be friendly neighbors too.
Streetlights, but also the
Yeah,
neighbors.
yeah, yeah.
So
And-
why are,
and
why
that-
are people putting up bright lights in houses? Like wall lights, or
Marketing. And then when you go and buy lights, it's all like, you can light up 5 acres of property.
We just replaced all the lighting in our house last year, so they're all lighting research. Yeah, they're all like, this is what you can
Yeah.
light up, you can see this far.
could you talk to the hardware stores?
Well, if I'm online.
A lot of it's online or in the Anchorage.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Do you see people putting those in?
Yeah.
Uh,
We can like, panel lights that
Yeah.
go everywhere, yeah.
Because again, education, what you're really doing, or would you like your neighbor to put that type of light up? If you have to.
Yeah, it's education, because we got, say this for beneficial, we got morons that drive with whatever lights as headlights on a boat, that is totally not cool and not the way to go. Blinds other guy, means you see no navigation lights. If you're a good mariner, you know how to navigate without that, but the morons, put bigger and brighter lights and think they can navigate.
I see some, like, in, some of the boats in the dock have these huge lights at the top of the mast. Is that what that's for?
No.
Well, there's a, sometimes you need it, but sometimes you don't, and that's, and then there's also boats run into this, Clanton, you know. So your generators running, and I don't know enough to know the energy, but you have to put X number of load. So you put your sodiums on just because you're burning your generator.
You gotta load your generator up some.
So, right, so there's this game, that's a bigger boat game that they play, but maybe those lights should be pointed somewhere else, or shouldn't be lights to blind everyone else, or whatever. Just try to get a load on your generator.
Yeah, you're not supposed to have those on while you're underway.
Yeah,
That is, that's against the rules of the road.
yeah, I mean, we, unfortunately, in a commercial fishing town, most commercial fishermen are not real mariners. And the Coast Guard doesn't call them out on it, but yeah, it causes issues.
That's a whole other issue that, well, I mean, while there may be some education that we could hope to be part of, it's like, how do you regulate it? That's a whole other.
Well, you regulate it, the Coast Guard can regulate it.
Yeah.
The Coast Guard has the fist to do it if they want. And they would in another place.
So your husband is now the buoy?
Yeah, unfortunately here, they're a buoy tending boat. They're not law enforcement,
Yes,
so
and that's a-
yeah, it's
our coaches
different.
aren't enforcing there. But they're buoy tenders, so they understand the lights and navigation. That's what they make these lights. Navigation for, and commercial fishermen, in a general sense, negate them all by putting a bigger light on the bow. So why we have a Coast Guard?
My dad worked for the Forest Service and timber sales. When he was on the trail, he was also law enforcement. That doesn't mean he carried anything, and everybody else does.
Right.
But yeah, when he found an ATV on a wilderness trail, he'd take the stems out of their tires. They'd have to push it out.
Well, any other thing, I know we're running late, we're like 15 minutes over. Anything else, I mean, we can definitely continue this conversation. What about codes? I mean, you know, do you think this is possible, or?
I mean, you can put any code in place.
Whether or not someone will choose to enforce it is a very different thing.
No, but it's just like maybe community saying, these have the lights, you go into the window or the street light. Get some feedback, and maybe speak community acceptance.
I mean, I think Lake's not wrong that there would probably be a huge educational component that would need to happen. I mean, you know, a lot of people are, it's gonna be a perception thing where, oh, well, if we turn the lights down, that's just, it's gonna cause trouble, you know, like not necessarily trouble as in like, a primary thing, but you know, it's more problems in general. But really, like you've been saying, you know, it's, if you're adjusting to those lights, then you really don't notice the difference. And so I think there would be a huge education component.
How does that education happen? Because not everybody shows up to this meeting, right? You know, or another meeting.
You turn them off and you see how many people whine about it.
Yeah.
And then you hand out flyers.
And
This is
the
why.
whole thing is like so many lights, and we saw big blaring lights, but someone who was shielding them. We saw that in many places where they handmade shields to light down. So somebody needs to be aware of it. Or you can dim down to 10% light level at night, no one's going to notice it at all. So that perception, we have light out there, but it's not wasting diesel energy, right?
Yeah, you dim it down until you get a complaint, and then you bump it up 5%.
Yeah.
We increase your light level.
See, to do the sound code, you know? Like, you can't-
After it's 10 PM and 6 AM,
Okay,
you're not supposed to.
so could
But
we,
enforcement.
could we do that? Because the problem with lighting level, and this is something that's really bothered me, our metrics are linear. It means 5 times, but sound is logarithmic. So 1 decibel is 10 times the light level, okay? But lighting, it's not that way. Our eyes are logarithmic. Everything we have is logarithmic. So you go 10 times, and then you go, oh, that's brighter than this, you know, just when you use foot candles. That's our problems. Our units are totally messed up with light. I wish they could be audio.
On the education side, though, I think, working in the schools works really well because they get code, and it actually seems like one of the best ways to communicate.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Let's
What are you
do it.
teaching my kids?
Yeah.
Well, I feel like if we just did do something where you were lowering the level of streetlights downtown, that kind of also gets the public more aware and makes the offenders look even worse, right? Because, you know, now it's kind of calm and muted, but they're right down the
Versus neighbor to neighbor yelling. Did you turn off that light? No. It's basically, yeah, in my neighborhood, everybody, we all decide to have down lights. And everyone, even neighbor to neighbor, hey, I'll turn my light off at night, no problem. So my entire neighborhood just is a little bit of a, people love it, lots of dogs. So it's kind of a community engagement.
It's funny how you responded to outages at all times of night over the years. There are stretches where, you know, I look for lights to see if that circuit is out, power out. And it's amazing, especially on the circuit I live on. There are stretches where you drive for a couple of miles and don't see a light. And it's going, and they'll see a light on the power line. So, I mean, a lot of people, luckily in the Pisces, I see a lot of lighting in our institutions, departments, organization. That's what seems like the end is most arbitrary. Some of these businesses are.
But if the utility can set a precedent, it gets the conversation going, and it can have an impact on the whole community.
We get to the numbers, I mean, what we're dimming who pays the streetlights?
City taxes.
The city, so we pay the streetlights. So if we dim the streetlights 50%, we're all gonna save $20 a year. I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out, but
I can give you some numbers.
that,
A lot.
How much diesel can be saved?
People are gonna care more about their checkbook than the diesel.
yeah.
Well-
Okay, that's interesting.
But it was the same thing. So I can tell you when we switched from the whole picture sodium to LEDs, I think we had about 115 streetlight poles. Maybe it was 220, we reduced that number, but it was saving the city $35,000 a year. About a third of that was diesel fuel, about a third of it was a reduced rate, and then a third of it was just not using as much as it was looking to. It's using 10 as much energy.
Yeah.
But that was 12 years ago. They were very directional, absolutely flat. They were just one options. Like that. It's just, there was essentially one fixed.
That's right.
Do you know Cordova is the first city in the United States We're 100% LED. Anchorage was going to, they started, we over there. And in the lower 48, everyone's going, oh my gosh, we've been talking about it.
Well, we have a lot less lights, so.
If you don't mind, I wanted to introduce Justin Sternberg as well.
Yeah.
He's the director of the Alaska Field Planning Center. And Justin worked on that street lighting project in Anchorage and kind of orchestrated this landscape to bring world-class expertise to Cordova. And I can't believe how much I learned in this 2 days. I'm excited, so.
It's,
Thank
and
you.
us too.
Yeah, thank you,
We have learned so much coming here, just about community, about fisheries, about the energy and the microgrids, and you know, it's amazing. That this is this place is on the cutting edge.
There's nowhere else we know of in the United States who's doing the microgrid.
Back to John's point, what's kind of the next step?
I don't know.
How much will it
We are
save? Plane's numbers, it's gonna save me $1,000 per person. You said $30,000.
I'm trying to remember what the
I'm paying $5, I'm gonna save $5,000 if we did the streetlights.
Yes.
Wait a second.
I have a feeling that's the math wrong. But I'll shoot it out tomorrow if it's gonna save me $1,000.
I'll tell you what the number is. They mails it to me on a regular basis.
The other thing is, and CEC is not changing out bulbs.
Isn't the maintenance about the same as the energy savings, just going from high pressure sodium to LEDs was about the same as the energy savings? You don't get that when you upgrade to the new LEDs, but you do.
Although the LEDs keep getting better and better, longer lifespans, and when we dim them, they get even longer lifespans. So by taking advantage of controls, should elongate that entire investment.
So streetlights cost just over $10,000 a month, judging from last month. It's $10,238.40.
That's just the utility streetlights, not the city, not.
That's the streetlights that, however we are counting them at Cordova Electric, 34 units. It's $10,000.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, last year it cost $8,000.
And in a dark room. That's
Yeah.
why LEDs were such a good fit, because they're on, no city linear, and that's what they're diesel.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the heavy fleets that are diesel.
So middle of winter, $8,000 to $10,000. You know, $8,000 was last year for the month of February, and it was $10,000 this year for the month of February.
And as you dim them, how LEDs burn out, they repeat. So as you dim them, they less and less heat put out, so they can last forever. So there's a lot of things.
The LEDs lasted forever, maybe it's just the lay person, but, you know, they're cool, and I've now replaced a lot of lights in the house, and what happens is the whole thing breaks, and now instead of changing a bulb, and then maybe I'm buying cheap crap at Home Depot versus industrial lights, that's the issue, but it's not the saving that they claimed it to be. Maybe the light still works, but something in my fixture breaks. I'm not an electrical engineer and it costs $30. It's easier to go throw it away and get another one, which sucks.
And now, they do have replacements. Yeah, that is a very common problem. Now the modern LEDs can replace LEDs.
Right. And I'm sure, you know, industrial sized lights are.
But But it's not,
better
it's not going to Home Depot to find it. You gotta go back to the manufacturer and, so
Amazon.
yeah, there are some that have better replaceable parts and some manufacturers have less replaceable parts.
Because that kind of thing in Cordova is a huge issue. Like, you have to have replaceable parts. They have to be able to be shipped here. And, they also have to withstand our weather. I can't imagine what those streetlights go through. Most things couldn't stand up there and work. So that has to be considered.
Yeah.
Telling me all these fancy
Well, and
controls
that's-
on them, I'm going, oh, those are all things to break.
I thought Anchorage is even, from a temperature standpoint, Anchorage is even more extreme.
Right.
They were the first to do it, and it was very successful.
I
But
think we're more worried about moisture here.
Yeah.
moisture.
And when,
Yeah.
like across, I think, you start getting more than 2 feet, like that's part of it's, on the lighting mast. And we had some of those that were just, if they had a poor weld or something, they weren't their first install.
Mhm.
We have a lot of stuff held up pretty young.
Because we do, I guess, all of it, plus, yeah, that's a whole other thing, it's a vibration thing. And if you get wind, or you can slow vibrate, and you get,
I don't think it has single level fixtures fail. So if they are-
wow, that's
It's
awesome.
pretty amazing.
12 years, that's really good.
Yeah.
Well, again, I know you don't want to spend a lot, but make sure you have good quality drivers. That they're matched well, because the drivers are going to fail things. The little light diodes, yeah, now we're getting the phosphor, crap, and that's why they're changing colors. But that's what's happening with the earlier LED readings. Thank you all.
Yeah,
This was awesome.
everybody contributed.
Everyone.
That's a success.
And keep sending us notes or whatever, or I should say,
Yeah.
keep sending notes.
Thank you guys,
Yeah.
really.
When people send those street light notes, I prefer that they're not wrapped around the
No, but just start as you drive home tonight, start looking. Wake up, start absorbing everything we talked about. See what your impressions are. How do we change them?